idea of the size. And I teach the pilots coming in. These pilots coming into our company already have their pilot licenses, but they're just learning this particular airplane for our company. And we have 3,000 pilots at our company, so it has grown very rapidly over the last 2 decades. A couple of years ago, it was realized we're having some training problems. We're seeing a lot of errors, a lot of mistakes that we shouldn't be in the training. We need to revamp the way that we train pilots. So they brought in experts, they conducted studies, they spent lots of money, and they came up with an entirely new training program. As a flight instructor, they brought us 100 or so flight instructors into a room, and they were going to teach us this new training philosophy, new way of training pilots. They sat us all down for this week-long course. They pass around a piece of paper, and on this piece of paper is a bulletin point list of our new training philosophy. And I read through the list, and I can't believe what I'm reading, because these points are exactly how they're teaching my 3-year-old at the time in his Montessori class. I was so surprised that I saved the exact piece of paper from several years ago. It's bent and it's been taped and everything has been written on, but here it is. Here's our new training philosophy. It's been absolutely wonderful. Listen to how we train pilots now. Here's the first one. Start from where the student is. This is new. We had not done this before. So start from where the student is. Oh, okay. Well, what do you mean by that? Well, in the past, we had always started from where the syllabus said to start. On day 1, we learned how to taxi the airplane. On day 2, we learned how to take off. On day 3, we learned how to land. You know, these types of things. But pilots coming in to fly this Citation 5 Encore, they come from a wide range of backgrounds. Some used to fly helicopters. Some used to fly big Boeing 747s. Some used to fly this very kind of airplane just for a different company. Why are we teaching them all how to taxi on day 1? We should be teaching the helicopter pilot how to taxi. The other guys, we should be teaching them something else. Start from where the student is. That's just what they do in these Montessori classrooms, where they look at each student. What is your reading and math ability? Is it here? That's where you start. The student over here, your reading and math ability is over here. That's where you start. I have a material that you might find interesting. Connect each student with something that's at their level. Start from where the student is. Who cares what the other 25 children in the class are doing, or where they are, or what they're starting from? We start from where you are. That's what they're telling us when we train pilots now. The next one on this list. Let the student know where he's going. In other words, make the learning meaningful, purposeful. Make sure the student understands, why am I learning this? Instead of just walking in, okay, class, we're doing this today, and then tomorrow we're doing that. How does it tie together? Why am I doing this? Purposeful learning. My all-time favorite example of purposeful learning in the classroom is of the little tiny guys, the little 3-year-olds cutting up a piece of fruit. Has anyone seen this? I took a tour earlier thinking of these. In one of the classrooms, sure enough, there's a bunch of bananas. And the little children there are serving the fruit. Oh, wonderful. Cutting up a banana. Whenever I observe the class and I see these little guys cutting up a banana, I always think, what would banana cutting look like in a conventional school? What would it look like? Well, here's what it would look like. And I know because I spent 15 years in the conventional system. Teacher would walk in with 25 bananas. So you put 5 in this row, 5 in this row, 5. You pass them back to your classmates, or everybody would get one. And then she would stand up at the front and she would give a wonderful lesson on how to cut a banana. A beautiful lesson. And everybody turn to chapter 14 in your books, banana cutting. And of course today it would be one of those wonderful smart boards and all those high tech. Everybody turning your iPad to section whatever, right? Yeah. No, they tell a wonderful lesson, and then everybody would cut up the banana, and then they would all pass them to the front. Everybody passed their banana. The teacher would collect those bananas and collect those, and just take a big bunch of 25 bananas home with her. And then the next day she'd bring them back, and she would see B+ for Sally, and C- for Joseph, and she'd hand them all back out with a grade on them. That's what we did, right? For 15 years, that's what you and I did. We did work, we turned it into the teacher, we got a grade on it. We did work, we turned it into the teacher, and we got a grade on it. Over and over and over again. That's not purposeful. That's not meaningful. Okay, so what's so special about this banana in the Montessori class? All right, well, the 3-year-old, first of all, there's not 25 bananas. There's a bunch. There's 5 or 6, and they're on a shelf sitting there. And at some point during the morning, one of the children says, I think I'm feeling a little bit hungry. And they walk over to the shelf, and they get the banana. And if the teacher's given them, they'll show them how to do it before. So, okay, I know how to do this, and I know how to give the knife, okay? You get out the banana, and they start cutting up the banana. And they take a piece, and they eat it. And then with the rest of it, they do not turn it in to the teacher. But instead, they take the rest of that banana on the plate, and they move out amongst their classmates, and they serve it to them as a snack. And one of the children gets a very large piece, and another child gets that end piece that's all brown. This one's very happy, and this one's sad. Real feedback is happening. And as the girl moves around the class walking with this banana, she trips and falls. And the banana falls on the floor. And she picks it up like, is it clean enough to put it back? Or do I need to wash it off first? Yes. Real things are happening. She's realizing, okay, that's why I need to cut it more equally. And that's why I need to walk more carefully. She's learning purposeful learning. That's why I'm learning this. Oh, okay, got it. That's what they're telling us when we train pilots. Make the learning purposeful, meaningful, so they can see why I'm doing this. How does it all fit together? The next one on this new training philosophy. Progress at the pace of the student. We had never done this one either. We had always progressed at the pace of the syllabus. Day 1, lesson 1. Day 2, lesson 2. Day 3, lesson 3. If the student was very sharp, very fast, picking things up very quickly, we would just have to fly around for 30 minutes and burn off some flight time because we couldn't actually move on to lesson 2 until it was day 2. If the student was very slow and wasn't picking it up as quickly as everybody else, we would tell them, you're too slow, you're falling behind, why aren't you getting this? You need to think harder, you need to fly faster, whatever it was. Was that useful? Was that effective? No, of course not. Now they're telling us, progress at the pace of the student. If it takes them a week to learn this airplane, take a week. If it takes them 2 weeks to learn the airplane, take 2 weeks. Make sure that pilot is safe and skillful and knowledgeable. Take as long as it takes to make sure that happens. The last one on this new training philosophy that's been around for 100 years in the Montessori system. Let the student make the skill and knowledge his own. Where's that ownership word again? Let him make the skill and knowledge his own. I brought along a dirty glove for my garage to help emphasize this point. Making the skill and knowledge your own is about getting your hands dirty. It's about reaching in and doing, reaching in and building, stacking, twisting. Something falls off, you figure out how to put it back on and make it work. Make it your own. When we train pilots, they're telling us, look for these key moments where this pilot can make this his own. For example, let's say we're flying along and we're doing an instrument approach. What that means, an instrument approach, what that means is you're flying along at night or in the clouds or the rain and you can't see anything out the window. And you have to fly from a high altitude all the way down to the runway without ever seeing anything. Obviously, this is challenging, so we practice it a lot. How to trust your altimeter, how to measure your gauges, measure your distance from the runway, all these types of things. We practice this in the simulator, preferably. And let's say I'm the flight instructor, I'm sitting in the right seat, and the pilot's sitting in the left seat, and we're flying along, and we're about to start an instrument approach. And I notice that this pilot is at 5,000 feet. And I realize he's supposed to be at 4,000 feet when he starts this approach. Instead, he's at 5,000. This might be one of those moments where he can make this skill and knowledge his own. I might not tell him he's at the wrong altitude. Let him start down from 5,000 feet. Let him realize at some point in here, you know what? My distance from the runway on my instrument panel and my altitude, it doesn't really match up. I think I'm a little bit too high. And he pulls the power back a little bit and pushes the nose down a little bit to try to get down. Flies along a little farther and realizes, I think I'm still too high. Pulls the power back to idle, pushes the nose down to try to get down, and his heart's beating faster, and he's concerned, why things don't match up? It doesn't feel right. What's wrong? And he decides to go missed approach. Adds the power back in, pitches the nose up, and misses the approach, and flies around, and comes all the way back around. And while he's flying back around to try again, he looks at the approach piece of paper there, and reads through the numbers. Oh, I'm supposed to be at 4,000 feet when I start this. Gets down to 4,000 feet, starts the approach. This time everything lines up, and he lands. If the pilot learns it that way, he's got it. And he will know for the rest of his career why it's important to double check that initial altitude before you start an approach. Whereas if I would have told him, hey, you're at 5,000 feet, you need to be at 4,000, he would have done that, and he would have started down perfectly. Everything would have been lined up on the first try, and he would have landed perfectly the first time, and he would not have learned a thing. He didn't make it his own. I told him what the answer was. I told him 4,000 feet. He complied with what I said, and he got an A+ 100%. And he did not learn a thing. How many times did that happen in our 15 years of going to school? The teacher told us what the answer was, and sometime later we spit it back to her, and then we got an A+. And we didn't learn a thing. We didn't make it our own. That's what they're telling us when we train pilots out in the real world now. That's exactly how they do things in Montessori. Children make it their own. Well, so that's our new training program. Getting back to that business analogy, that's practicing overcoming challenges. How do we learn how to overcome obstacles? We make it our own. We progress at our own pace. We start from where we are when we learn it. All these wonderful things. Let's move on to the next part of our business scaffolding, which was mistakes, errors, failures. What do we do when we have a failure? What's the next step that we take? Obviously, flying airplanes, we deal with mistakes and errors a lot. How to minimize them, or how to eliminate them. Well, along with this new training program, our company also joined the whole aviation industry in moving towards an entirely new safety program. In the past, regarding safety,